I want to help.
Little girl pays for old man's groceries. What happens next leaves the entire store in tears. The afternoon sun poured through the dusty windows of Harper's grocery, painting streaks of gold across the faded tile floor. The store was nearly silent, except for the hum of refrigerators and the soft beep of the checkout scanner. At the counter stood Walter Briggs, a frail old man in a worn gray coat, his shoulders slightly bent. He placed a few simple groceries, bread, milk, and some vegetables, on the counter and began counting a pile of coins with trembling hands. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop your country in the comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Now let's continue. The total was more than what he had. His heart sank. Around him, a few customers sighed impatiently. The young cashier tapped her nails against the counter, her expression flat and tired. Walter hesitated, whispering that he'd put some items back. His voice cracked with embarrassment. No one spoke. The world for a moment felt cold and uncaring. Just as the cashier reached for the groceries to remove them, a small voice broke the silence. "I can help." Everyone turned. Standing a few feet behind Walter was a little girl, about 9 years old, with curly brown hair, dirt smudged on her cheeks, and eyes full of light. Her name was Nora. She held out a crumpled $10 bill with both hands. "It's okay," she said softly. "Please use this for him." Walter looked at her in disbelief. "Sweetheart, you don't need to do that," he said gently. But she only smiled and shook her head. "I want to." Something in her voice, so pure, so sincere, silenced the room. Even the impatient customers stopped to watch. The cashier hesitated, then slowly took the bill, bagged the groceries, and handed them to Walter. He clutched the bag to his chest, his eyes wet. "Thank you, little one," he whispered. As he stepped outside, sunlight hit his face, and for the first time in years he felt seen. Outside, the street gleamed with the late-day sun. Along the curb sat a line of motorcycles, gleaming chrome machines that seemed out of place in the quiet town. A group of bikers stood nearby, watching through the glass doors of the grocery store. They were the Steel Guardians, a brotherhood of riders known across the region for helping the forgotten, widows, veterans, and people in need. Walter paused when he saw them. His chest tightened. Years ago, he had ridden with them. He had been one of their founders, strong, respected, full of life. But after his wife died, everything crumbled. He withdrew from everyone, vanished from their world, and tried to survive alone. As he stared at the bikes, memories flooded back. Long rides, laughter, brotherhood, and purpose. And now, because of one little girl's kindness, something inside him stirred again. That evening, Nora sat at the small wooden table in her family's modest home on the edge of town. Her mother, Ellen, served a simple dinner of soup and bread. The house was old, paint peeling, the roof leaking, walls thin enough for the night wind to whisper through. But Nora didn't mind. She told her mother about the man at the grocery store and how happy he looked when she helped him. Ellen smiled proudly and stroked her daughter's hair. "That was a beautiful thing you did," she said softly. Later, Nora sat by the window, gazing at the stars. Her heart felt light. She didn't know who the man was or what he'd been through. All she knew was that it felt right to help. Outside, crickets sang. The night was peaceful. For a while. At around 9 o'clock, the quiet night was suddenly shattered by a deep rumbling sound, low and powerful, like thunder rolling across the earth. The sound grew louder, closer, until the windows rattled. Ellen hurried to the door, confused and alarmed. Nora ran to the porch, barefoot, her heart pounding. What they saw left them speechless. The entire street was filled with motorcycles, row after row of them, headlights glowing like stars, chrome gleaming under the moonlight. Neighbors peeked out of their windows, drawn by the noise and light. The engines slowly quieted until only the soft hum of idling bikes filled the air. Then the crowd of bikers parted. From among them stepped Walter Briggs, clean-shaven, standing tall, wearing a black leather vest embroidered with the Steel Guardian's insignia. His weathered face was calm, but his eyes sparkled with emotion. Walter stepped up to Nora and her mother. "You probably don't remember me well," he said gently. "But earlier today, you gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope." He told them who he was, about the brotherhood he'd once led, and how life had taken everything from him. "I thought the world had turned its back on kindness," he said, voice trembling. "But your little girl reminded me it's still alive." He turned and gestured toward one of the bikers, who handed him an envelope. Walter gave it to Ellen. Inside was a thick stack of bills, enough to pay the family's rent for months and repair their broken roof. Then the bikers began unloading boxes, bags of groceries, new clothes, toys, school supplies. The front yard filled with gifts. Ellen covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Finally, the leader of the Steel Guardians, a tall man with a braided beard, knelt down and handed Nora a tiny black leather jacket. On the back, a silver patch read, "Little Guardian." The crowd of bikers cheered as Nora put it on. Walter's eyes shimmered. For the first time in years he felt alive, not because he was helped, but because someone reminded him what humanity still looked like. As the night deepened, the bikers built a bonfire in the yard. Flames flickered high, casting warm light on everyone's faces. They shared food, laughter, and stories of the old days. Neighbors came out with dishes and desserts, joining the gathering. The once quiet street became alive with voices and laughter. Music played from a radio, and children danced near the fire. Walter sat near Nora, smiling like a man reborn. "You saved me, kid," he whispered. "Never forget how powerful kindness can be." Above them, sparks rose into the starry sky, like tiny reminders that light can grow from the smallest flame. By dawn, the bikers were ready to leave. The street glowed softly in the first light of morning. Nora's house, once old and broken, now looked refreshed, the roof repaired, walls painted, and a small garden bed built in front. Walter hugged Nora and her mother goodbye. "We'll be back soon to help you plant those flowers," he promised with a grin. As the bikers started their engines, the roar filled the town once more. Nora stood on the porch wearing her little Guardian jacket, waving as hundreds of motorcycles rolled away, their tail lights fading into the horizon. Days passed and the story spread. Local newspapers picked it up, then TV stations, then social media. People across the country heard about the little girl who helped a stranger, and how that act of kindness brought an entire community together. A week later, Harper's Grocery unveiled a new sign above the door. It read, "In honor of Nora, the little guardian," and beneath it, painted by hand, "A single act of kindness can awaken 1,000 hearts." From that day on, everyone who entered that store saw those words and remembered one thing, that no good deed, no matter how small, ever goes unnoticed. Because one little girl's kindness had sparked an army of compassion, and reminded the world what love can do. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Echoes of Life Stories and become part of a growing community that believes in kindness, hope, and humanity. Every week, we share true and inspiring stories that remind us the world still has good people in it. Hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment about what this story meant to you. Share it with someone who could use a little light today. Because one click might not change the world, but it helps us keep telling stories that just might. Subscribe now, and keep the echoes of kindness alive.